And it's starting. And I hope nobody heard me say that we're going to make fun of Mike Lafferty when it started. So anyway, hi, I'm Walt, and I'm the head inkslinger over at Hazard Studio. And today we are working for the BAMF podcast. And Mike Lafferty apologizes. He might have been scrambled in a mishap of the transporter. He should be along once we get him cohesive in one piece again. Today, joined by our longtime co-host, Mr. Ade Smith. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Not too bad at all.
And we have Sam Webb from Modiphius. It's publishing, correct, or press?
Entertainment.
Now you're just showing off.
I know.
And how are you today, sir?
I'm really good, thank you. A little tired from the end of the week. It's been a bit of a frantic one, but all good.
Well, seeing that you guys have the latest and greatest and the newest Star Trek line of RPG games, I can see why you'd be a little bit busy.
Yeah.
And with that as our caveat, we're here to talk about the new Star Trek series. So, you guys have seen it?
Yes.
I have.
How about get into some first impressions?
I thought it was very good. Very good.
Did it live up to the hype? I mean, because they hyped it a little bit right beforehand.
This is the weird thing, because everyone was worried that because nobody had done any reviews that it was going to be terrible. It's like, okay, it's embargoed. It's going to be absolutely god awful. Just drop it now. It's going to be. I thought it was really good. It's modern Star Trek in the way that it feels like a TV episode of the movies. It's not the actual way it's done. Is not like Next Generation or Classic Trek, and you don't get like the 3-act thing. It doesn't seem to be that kind of, and the B stories and all that kind of stuff. These two literally seem to be like a little mini movie. Whether or not that will come along later on, and we'll see episodes what focus on different crew members as the main story, and then the main character as it is we have now of Berman being like the B story. I honestly don't know, but all in all, as a package altogether, it was pretty damn decent. Yeah.
Sam, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it. I really did. I was obviously quite nervous going in. I think Aid kind of put it quite clearly that, like, you know, with the embargo and everything, and obviously with quite early on one of their showrunners going off the grid, or basically kind of not working for them anymore, you know, there was some concern. And of course, you know, we're all here, we're all watching it because we love Star Trek, and we're so used to how it used to be, that I think a lot was riding on CBS. But I really think they've knocked it out of the park, because something I was very conscious of even before I watched it was, I think we can't go back to those episodes where, you know, Troy and Crusher do yoga in the corridor. We can't do that anymore. You know, we are the generation now that have Stranger Things and you know, like, you know, Designated Survivor and big massive serials now that, you know, exist with their big plot arcs. The Expanse is another, I know it's from the books, but is another good example of like a Netflix original that has just come and kind of, again, knocked it out of the park. So actually, I think they've done a really good job in being very conscious that they have to change. And I think they've done a really good job of bringing it up to date, actually.
Now, what time period does this take place in?
This is 10 years before Kirk. Yeah. So practically 10, arguably 11 years before the 5-year mission from Kirk. And I think I got that. I think. I mean, obviously, you know, you brought it up to date, and the graphics are a lot better. So the transporter looks, you know, probably the transporter effect looks the most amazing I think I've ever seen it. I was really like that. But you know, they were clearly giving us the clues via the audio. So the doors make the swishing noise, and they say, you know, try the hailing frequencies, and you get that little bleep bleep hailing frequency noise. And I think at one point, isn't it early on, that where is she? The Captain Giorgio goes on the bridge, and you hear the whistle.
Yeah.
So it's all, you know, it's all there.
As soon as she steps on the bridge, you get all the bridge noises from Classic Trek, and then you get the little whistle, and you think, nailed it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're giving us the cues, the audio cues to help us kind of get into that. And I mean, I thought I watched the first episode again, probably only a couple of hours ago, just kind of refresh my memory. And I think like I could completely buy that we were 10 years before Kirk, even though production values have increased so much. I mean, like I said earlier, there is no way we can go back to a bridge with knobs and buttons on. And
well, that's what I was going to ask next is, does it take you out of it a little bit, knowing that it's 10 years earlier, and instead of knobs and buttons, we have touch screens and high resolution graphics?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think it's that breaking for me personally. I mean, but I wasn't the generation that grew up with Kirk. I mean, Chris Birch is our publishing director. He very much did, and that was one of the main impetuses for him to go on to then get the license for Star Trek Adventures. But like I say, we've got to update, and it's a nice thing that Nathan Dowdell, our rules developer for Star Trek Adventures, said. I remember him saying about it was that. Star Trek, they did the best they could with the production values that they had at the time. And you see that throughout, I think, all of the seasons, right up to Enterprise. Enterprise arguably probably had the same concern from fans, maybe, that it's been brought so much up to date that I don't believe that this is 100 years before Kirk. Well, actually, you know what? Let your imagination fill in the gaps, I
think that's it. I think if they were to do a classic Trek stuff now, obviously if we see a bridge of a Constitution starship in Discovery, that will immediately go, okay, well there you go. That's what a Constitution looks like in the mind's eye of the people now, because you've got to look back and realize that special effects are completely different there, and then you've only got to look at the Klingons in the original. It's like, just put some stuff and that'd be fine. That you it's the same as like Doctor Who or something like that. When you see like the aliens and the little blobby things from 50 years ago, your imagination has to fill in the gap that is the monster that is now in the new Doctor Who or something. And they look slightly different because they've got better special effects. And I think you can't take it as a completely perfect representation of the technology levels or the actual, the era as such. Just kind of you might have to fill in the blanks. Yeah.
Right on. So, I mean, based on everything that I've seen and read on this, this all starts with the Klingons. How did you guys feel about the update to the look?
I personally didn't like it straight away. As soon as they came on to the trailers, I immediately thought, why have they redesigned the Klingons again? The original Trek Klingons and then movie Klingons for Next Generation. To me, that's the iconic Klingon. I don't know why they had to redesign it, but they also redesigned it in the Abrams movies. And you think, okay, why did you do it then? That completely unnecessary, because they literally did it for about 5 minutes. The Klingons in the second movie, and it's like that just seems such a waste of time. But they work. They grow on you. The more you watch the Klingons in it, you tend to just forget that these are just, hey, these aren't Klingons. They actually seem to be Klingons. The only thing I don't like is their personal armor. I think it's a bit too ridgy. But I did a blog on the morning that I watched it, and basically said, this is the problem. We live in now a HD TV world, so everything has to have little bits and bobs on it. Can't have anything flat anymore. Everything has to have little fiddly bits on it. So they've done that with the armor. They've done that with the spaceships. They've done that with the bat lefts. They've done that with the spacesuits the Klingons have got. Everything else is just got to have a little bit of extra texture on it you would never see elsewhere. But all in all, work as Klingons. The culture seems to be okay. It's just the look. You just have to get into the mindset. Hey, just do the same thing as you did with classic Trek to movies. These are Klingons, but don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I again quite enjoyed the redesign of the Klingons. Actually, I mean, the only issue I had, and it was only a mild one, was some of the dubbing because of the prosthetics being so rigid. Mm-hmm. But you can live with that, I think. And I actually loved how much Klingon there was. Not to say that the amount that we actually saw them on screen, but the sheer amount of the language that was present in the episodes. I actually really valued that, and it felt it actually felt like, I know we've obviously now got like Klingon dictionaries and it's all been translated, and you know, the fans have really taken that and embraced the language and the culture. But actually, I felt like Star Trek had grown up and gone, oh, actually, we understand now that there is an audience that can read subtitles at speed, and because you've got anime fans who do it constantly. Or you've got, you know, more multicultural shows now, I imagine, that are on like Netflix or even on main distribution channels that do have different languages. I think Lost is another example, I think, from a few years ago, where they had different languages on all in the same episode. So, you know, again, we've come forward a bit in terms of I think the audience being able to take that on board. And as just as a nice point of interest, if you watch it on Netflix, you can get subtitles in Klingon if you really want to. I found that quite funny.
Do you guys know if you can watch it on Netflix in the States?
Yeah.
No, CBS only.
No, it's going to be. I've heard it's going to be CBS.
So it's one of the few times the English have actually got a decent thing, because at Netflix, if you subscribe to Netflix, you get it as free every Monday. It's fantastic. No more going off to buy another subscription channel. It's very rare that happens. So
to probably subscribe where no one has subscribed before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's turning a lot of fans off too, is that we get for Star Trek, they're going to have their own streaming service. Disney is talking about putting their stuff on a streaming service. You got the WB now for like things like Teen Titans and whatnot are going to have their own streaming service. So how much do we have to pay into to enjoy this content, or do we just wait for the Blu-ray and just rent it when it comes out? You know,
that's the thing. I mean, are you going to start dropping $40 a month subscription services for digital and start pocket little niche ones, $5-10 every time? Because it just gets crazy. I mean, especially if you only want, say, CBS, maybe you only want Discovery. Do you spend whatever $6, $8 just to watch one episode once a week for 25 weeks or whatever it's going to be? I don't even know how many episodes are going to be. Do we know how many episodes there are?
It's going to be 15.
Okay, that's a pretty good order. That's not too bad.
Or you can wait for one of the streaming services. Like I've read the books for The Expanse, and but I really enjoy the show. So pretty much at the beginning of the season, I buy the show ahead of time, and 2 days after they drop on regular TV, I get the episode in my email, and I can watch it whenever.
So that's crazy, because it's like, so we get The Expanse on Netflix in the UK, and we also get like I said to Luke on Facebook, we get Rick and Morty every Friday. We get a new episode, and we're literally 1 week behind. That is it. Back in the day, we'd be like 3 or 4 months behind, or 6 months behind. So
or years.
1 week, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
1 week, we can live with that. Yeah. So
it's going to be.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's going to be interesting to see, I think, where the industry goes. I was reading the other day, and this was about how CBS was trying to get some of the market in terms of a subscription service for digital kind of distribution. And it's funny how, you know, your Netflixes and your Amazons have really managed to pioneer the technology and have got so many subscribers that suddenly Disney's gone, oh right, oh okay, we're going to start pulling all of our content from Sky Now TV, because we see that actually we want to make our money. So I think maybe you're going to see more of this. I think maybe you're going to see more of your different networks. I don't know them so well in America, but I mean, it's different in the UK. So the BBC kind of on-demand content is all free because of the license fee. So it's essentially a tax that you pay anyway, and then it's all free content. And then the other channels, essentially their on-demand kind of catch-up services, all have adverts basically put in during the show and before and after. But I think you are going to see, like, maybe your kind of, you know, your NBCs or whatnot actually doing more of this, and maybe the market becomes a bit more segmented before we actually, I don't know, before there is maybe one's kind of big service. But just to finally point out, I don't think it would surprise me at all if Netflix have negotiated, or maybe that CBS will acknowledge, and Netflix will get the whole series in America once it all lands. That it will all be on demand on Netflix.
Yeah. So the odd thing being, I'm hoping that they take into consideration for viewing figures that it's like the big high up bosses go, well, we haven't hit them numbers we were thinking of because it's in the subscription service. As long as they take that in consideration, that's fine. If they go, well, we didn't sell 1 billion subscriptions on day one, so therefore it's terrible, let's not do any more, because that's a completely wasted opportunity. For everybody I know that's seen it, give or take a handful, one or two, they've said it's good. I'll stick with it. We'll see where it goes for. And and it would be shameful to see him just say, "Oh, we'll just write it off straight away." I mean, we see some in the UK. We get this quite a lot. You hear of these really cool, hip, funky American TV shows. Hey, it's great, and we get it on the Fox channel, whatever, and it's been cancelled in 13 episodes. And we go, "Well, that was that then." Before we've even aired on one episode over here. So I'm hoping it doesn't suffer a similar fate.
That's especially anytime Joss Whedon's attached to it, they pretty much put a length of time run on any of the shows that they do like that. If folks are kind of on the fence as to whether or not they want to jump in and drop a couple bucks on this to see where it goes, can you give folks a synopsis of the first 2 episodes or the plot? I mean, is it going to be episodic like the old Star Trek where each show is a different mission, or is there an overarching story that goes throughout each episode?
I get the impression we may have an overarching story through everything, just by the way the second episode ends. These two do tend to seem to be like the traditional pilot movie kind of thing that you could air. So that whether or not outside of this, I honestly don't know if it's just going to be self-contained episodes. You just keep moving on. But synopsis-wise, there's lots of Klingons. One Klingon in particular, I can't remember the guy's name now because I can never remember how to pronounce it. Tukova?
Oh, I've got IMDb open. Let me look at this.
Tavaga? Anyway, he's the main Klingon who believes that. Thank you. There you go. He believes that he can reunite the 24 houses of the Klingon Empire by basically sending this beacon up and negotiate with them. And it seems to be kind of like a spiritual thing about retaking the power of the Kalis, and we're talking about Klingons earlier on. There seems to be some interesting stuff going on about there's an albino Klingon in the crew of this main guy, and so he seems to be without Vok. Yeah. He's without a Klingon house, and they seem to have discarded him from a Klingon house purely by the color of his skin. He seems to just be, hey, you're not a pure Klingon, get out of it. And there's a speech that comes up later on that basically says the Klingon main guy does not want to be stuck in the mire of the Federation and mixed with it. And it seems to be like, okay, is this some kind of like a cultural? They're worried about the Federation taking over the Klingon culture and basically actually downplaying it, or is there actually something being on they're saying that there's something genetic going on? Because obviously we've seen in Enterprise and we've seen in the DS9 where they mentioned about the Klingons changing from classic Trek to thingy. There's some kind of genetic mutation going on there. Is there something going on there? Is this why the Klingons look different in Discovery? And it's quite weird that that's in there. But anyway, he's trying to get the 24 houses brought up to attack the Federation. They call the Federation guys, the other Klingons in. Federation show up, big fat battle, and that's it for that part of the thing, really. By episode 1, episode 2. Do you want to explain some more about the main character?
Yeah. So Michael,
I'll leave you hanging. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, fair. I mean, you wanted both episodes as a synopsis. So I mean, we can talk about the second episode because, to be honest, I don't know where we're going to go from here.
Yeah.
Because Michael Burnham is the main character. That's Shaniqua Martin Green. She plays basically number 1, which obviously kind of harks back to when they put the pilot out for the original Star Trek, and you follow number 1, this female character. Who is basically the first officer to the captain of the ship, Michelle Yeoh. And yeah, they're in this big fight. The Federation come to back them up. It's this other Klingon fleet. The Starfleet ships get absolutely decimated, including the death of an admiral who's trying to oversee the operation. And this is essentially first contact with the Klingons for about 100 years or so, is what they keep alluding to. And then by that point, they decide, well, we're sitting ducks here in this kind of asteroid field, in this binary star system. What are we going to do? And this is where I actually think, Ade, that this is where Discovery felt to me a lot like this is what an RPG player party would do. Because they go, oh, well, you know, we can try and cripple the ship. And the captain's like, right, this is my job. I'm going to go on a suicide mission. I'm going to plant a torpedo warhead on the thing using like a little, you know, worker bee. And then I can't remember if it's the lieutenant or if it's Michael, but someone basically goes, you know, well, there are these dead Klingon bodies. They're collecting them to put them onto the hull of their ship. Why don't we just put a warhead in a dead body? And everyone's like, huh, yeah, let's do that. No one has to die here. That's good. Everyone good? Okay, cool. It's just one of those really nice kind of RPG player curveballs, I think. I don't know which writer suggested it in the writer's room, but I think they did a really good job of that, because they put this warhead onto a Klingon body, they let it suck it up, and then they basically cripple the enemy Klingon ship. Then the captain and number one beam over to try and capture this head Klingon, to Kuvma, because obviously killing him would mean martyrdom, so they're trying to capture him so that they can sue for peace with the Klingons. They go over there. There's a typical kind of two-person on two-person fight, and unfortunately, Commander Burnham has to kill the captain, which means that, and it turns out actually as well that, that's to kill the Klingon captain, but only because he's just killed Captain Giorgio. So we no longer have Michelle Yeoh in the show,
which is a shame. At least we see her in flashbacks, of course. But yeah,
I mean, to be honest, I think we'll get quite a few flashbacks. I doubt if we'll see the last of her. But then we'll obviously be introduced by the new captain. That's who's that? That's some guy. I was prepared for this.
And I as soon as you say the guy's name, I'll say, yeah, that's him. I'm like, it's Jason Isaacs. Is that right?
I want to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Let's just say that. That's fine. But
it is Jason Isaacs.
Yeah. So the interesting thing at the end of the second episode, she's court-martialed, and she's sent to prison for X amount of years. And it's like, okay, that's really weird. What's going to go on now then? So yeah, it's a bit of a
the big oh my god moment that we completely missed from that synopsis was that there's a point where Captain Giorgio and Commander Burnham are arguing about what they should do. It's that Burnham's had all this trouble with her past, that she's been basically she's an orphan because of a Klingon attack. It's basically the Starship equivalent of goblins raided my village and I'm the only survivor. Captain Georgia's like, no, Starfleet doesn't fire first. And Michael Burnham's got more intel from Sarek, Spock's dad, isn't it? I think. That says, well, look, the reason that the Vulcans managed to keep the Klingons at bay for 100 years is that whenever they went into a system where there was a Klingon ship, the Vulcans would fire first. And basically as a big kind of warning shot. And it basically speaking in a language the Klingons understand. And so Michael Burnham's trying to, convince the captain doing this, like, come on, we have to fire on them, we have to fire on them. And she keeps questioning her orders whilst on the bridge in front of all the senior staff. So she gets taken into her ready room and, Captain Giorgio is saying, look, I'm not having you do this. Stand down. You're being far too, emotionally driven. I'm giving you an order to stand down. We're not going to fire on them first. And there's a lovely, lovely moment where Michelle Yeoh comforts Shaniqua. And then Shaniqua, because of her Vulcan background, forcibly puts her hand on the captain's neck, and Vulcan pinches her. And at that point, goes back onto the bridge and says to everyone, right, Captain said we're going to fire on them, so we're going to fire on them. And it is a massive, oh my God, what are you doing moment, because we have never seen that in Star Trek. We've seen, you know, bug conspiracies that take over admirals and we vaporize them, but that's fine because they're bugs and they're being mind controlled. And we've seen, you know, Catherine Janeway argue with her future self about whether the temporal prime directive matters and whether destroying the Borg is a good thing or not. Whatever, we get that. That's not, you know, Federation versus Federation. But this is clear insubordination and absolute mutiny. And so by the end of the second episode, you've got Commander Burnham. Not just being court-martialed, but being imprisoned. Straight up. And you know, if you take Trek back 20 years, that's the end of a character arc, and the character is no longer with us.
Yeah, it's not the beginning of the end of a two-parter for the rest of the series to follow on. Yeah,
yeah, you know, special guest star XXX, but yeah, this is our main character. So who knows, man.
Okay, so it's an interesting question for you. Do you think they are going to be retreading stuff that we've seen from classic Spock stuff because we have a Vulcan human kind of thing going on, or do you think they're going to go off at a different tangent or ignore it? Because so my biggest worry, as soon as when they first announced Discovery, it's like, hey, she's playing the daughter of Sarek. Oh my God, why do they bring Sarek into it? That's so crazy. Yeah, we've seen a lot of Sarek, and even if we didn't see Sarek a lot in the classics episodes, his kind of like spirit was always there as being, okay, well, Spock's got to adhere to the Vulcan teachings. Sarek's always going to be hovering over his background. And I was worried that we'd see a lot more of that with Burnham, but she seems to, when you get the flashback, she comes on, she's literally like, acts like completely Vulcan. Seems illogical, she's very emotionally stilted. And over that 7-year period, as at the beginning of the main episode, she seems to have kind of like lost that and gone a lot more human, and still kind of embodies the logical teachings of the Vulcans, but doesn't kind of still allows our human emotions to get involved. Do you think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of classic Spock? Oh my God, my Vulcan says this, but my humans, are we going to see?
I think so.
Is it a mistake though? Do you think they should have done something different?
I don't know. I think it's old enough for fans like me won't be bothered by it. But it's going to be an interesting dynamic, and I really think Shanique was doing an amazing job. I think she's a great actress, and I really actually enjoyed watching her kind of ease of a performance. I mean, she didn't walk it in. She did, she gave a really dynamic performance, but it was so easy to watch her. And I think part of that is because Spock is, clearly, half human, but, has Vulcan blood in him, essentially, is Vulcan for, more or less. And so it was, this was the first experience we had of Vulcans. And for that, I remember watching something about Leonard Nimoy, and he always, I think, said that people thought that, Vulcans don't have any emotions and that Spock didn't have any emotions. But that's completely contradictory to how he played him. He always played Spock as if you have a saucepan of overboiling water that you're trying to keep the lid on. And all those emotions are bubbling underneath, and they all exist, and they absolutely bubble under the surface. But on the surface, apart from a couple of times, particularly when Kirk's in trouble or he thinks he's dead or something, that it just bubbles up, or it's calm on the surface. And what's different about Shaniqua's performance is that she is clearly playing a human who can't get through. I mean, she's clearly not been through Kolinar, so she's not had the actual ritual purging of emotion. She's still incredibly emotionally driven. But I think the dynamic we're going to see is more of her trying to use the Vulcan teachings she has to calm herself down. But we're going to see more emotion from her, I think, based on the performance that I've seen so far anyway.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of a human taking it too far, can a human use the Vulcan neck pinch? And if is it outlined in any of your source books? Because I'm asking for a friend.
So I think
GM's permission, isn't it, for a talent? I believe, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. So a lot of when you create a character in Star Trek Adventures, your first step is to choose the species or the dominant species of your character. And then you get access to certain talents, and they're species talents. So one of them is the Vulcan nerve pinch, and I believe it is also GM's discretion. So you don't have to be a Vulcan to take it. I mean, and on that canonical basis from last week's episode, you can absolutely be taught. It's not so much a Vulcan, magical effect, for want of a better term. It's just a technique that can be taught. So
now, you're talking about how in the show, we're looking at another character that is of mixed race, and you see a lot of that in the original series. You see a lot of that in Next Generation, and I think wasn't there a Vulcan Klingon hybrid at one point? Character? I can't remember.
I can't remember. Possibly.
B'Elanna Torres is the half Klingon. You've got Spock as the half Vulcan. You've got crikey.
In typical fantasy fiction lore, it's always half something, half human.
Oh yeah.
Isn't it? So I think that's the case.
Now, other than
Seela's half Romulan, half human. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just carry on just naming people now.
Now, in Star Trek canon, I know that in the Next Generation, Worf was Klingon, but he was raised by human parents. Do we see many expatriated species? Like, you can make a classic example of people of Korean descent who were born and raised in Japan, and how their culture sees them. Same for those who are of French descent that live in Canada. Not that they're not seen as part of the country or separate, but do they have many examples of stuff like that where you have, because I mean, you have all these different races colonizing all these different places. Some of this is going to get jumbled over time. Do you see many of that in some of the storylines?
Well, this is interesting about Burnham is that she's like effectively a culture implant onto the Vulcan homeworld. So she's been taught from I don't because her parents died in the attack by the Klingons, but I don't think it's been established exactly how young she was at the time when they were killed.
I mean, we have a flashback of her in the Vulcan Academy. Looks about 8, I think.
So I get the impression it was probably about that age, because she seemed to understand the Klingons did it. So I think if she was any younger, they could have basically said, well, we're not going to tell you what happened to your parents. They're just gone. I think she must have at least understood or been aware of what was going on at the time. Anyway, that kind of cultural shift, that's something we don't see very often. And if we do see it, it's generally speaking an alien race that's been implanted into a human culture. It's like, hey, it's the guy that's raised by the humans. This is the first time, as far as I'm aware, that we've ever seen an alien race effectively that's raised a human in their culture. Well, rather than saying, "Oh yeah, we raised the human person, but we let her be a human. We didn't actually give her any teachings of our culture. We just let her do what she wanted to do." This is actually something. This is quite different, and it's trying to fill the canon and make sure it stays intact. This is a way of getting around the Spock was the first Vulcan in the Starfleet thing, because effectively we've got a human that's raised as a Vulcan who's in Starfleet, but she's not actually a Vulcan, therefore she's not going to be the first Vulcan because Spock's already the first Vulcan. Does that make sense?
I'm getting there.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so that's one way of getting around it. So effectively we've got, because we're not supposed, obviously with Enterprise we've got
Paul is, but
she's not official. She's an attachment to the crew, so she doesn't count. So yeah, so this is like, hey, we need a Vulcan in Star Trek. No, we can't have a Vulcan in Star Trek. Spock was the first one. Damn it, what do we do? Well, we'd stick a human in the Vulcan Academy, put her through 20 years of Vulcan Academy. She comes at the other end, and we've got a makeshift Vulcan. That'll do.
Saying that, I don't think they just put it in because they want a Vulcan or anything. No. I think actually the storyline's developed enough, and there's enough foreshadowing about her past that I think they are trying to deal with something that's a little bit deeper than that. And like you said, I think they are dealing with what is cultural identity, and what is your actual upbringing. And how those things relate to each other, and how you want to be recognized as a person. I know friends of mine from Asian descent often are quite just annoyed by the kind of "where are you from" question that gets bandied around. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm from London.
Yeah, just down the road. What are you on about?
Yeah, I live down the road actually. So I think. Not maybe consciously from their part, but I think they're dealing with all of that. They're kind of how cultural identity relates to us and how our actual upbringing also relates to that. And just for the shameless plug, we do a little bit of that in Star Trek Adventures, actually. So one of the steps in the life path of creating a character, you can roll randomly if you want, or you can pick, but you decide what your upbringing was, and it can be homeworld, which means that you grew up on the homeworld of your species, or it could also be the homeworld of a different species. So Burnham could fit perfectly in terms of that she is human as her species and she gets access to those talents, but her upbringing means that she was actually raised on Vulcan, and so her stats would actually change at that point. So reason would be increased, I think, and I can't remember the others, but stats would be reflected in the fact that she was raised on Vulcan or by Vulcan colony.
In the game, when you're part of one species and raised in the homeworld or even in one of the colonies of another species, does that affect your physical attributes? You have planets with different gravity, different atmospheres, so forth and so on. Does that alter you in any way in the game, or it's just kind of assumed that everybody's kind of class M as far as planets go?
Oh, it does. It absolutely does change. It can change stuff like fitness. So you have 6 attributes as a character, and they relate to 6 disciplines. And disciplines are really easy to describe because they mirror the departments of Starfleet. So you've got command, con, security, engineering, and science and medicine. But the attributes are a bit more D&D-esque. They're control, daring. You've got fitness and insight, presence, and reason. And that is quite honestly the quickest I've ever reeled that off. I always forget one of them.
There's always one. Yeah, it's always this one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What is it? Presence. Shit. And so, yeah, it could be that if you were raised on, a different home world than your own, then actually your fitness goes up. Maybe because it's the gravity, maybe it's because of the environment, or maybe it is just because of the lifestyle and the regime that goes on there. But it can actually absolutely change your physical, one of your kind of physical attributes, although they tend to be more kind of narrative and descriptive than hard line. So control is a great example, because control as an attribute could mean your kind of fine motor skills, your hand-eye coordination, but it could also mean the ability to control your emotions and to compose yourself. So it can have some interpretation that way. But yeah, they absolutely do change. And one of the cool things I quite like about it is you have your upbringing, sorry, your environment is where you're raised. So that can be a different home world, or it could be a different world, or a frontier colony or something. But your upbringing is actually how you're brought up. So it could be something like agricultural, or your family could have been in Starfleet and you've grown up on space stations and on different starships your whole life. One of the cool things I really like about that is that normally in an RPG, it's like, oh, that's my background. Okay, I'm just going to accept that. That's fine. So I was raised this way. Whereas actually, Star Trek Adventures gives you a choice. You can accept that upbringing, and it gives you a certain boost in disciplines, or you can reject. So you can basically rebel against that upbringing, and you get a whole different set of increases for your stats. So it all depends on whether, you could be, raised on a farm, but you really hated it. So you were always trying to get onto, the local databases and, what is the kind of Star Trek equivalent of like the news or Facebook or something. And you're trying to get away from that life. So you learn different skills. You don't learn how to fix a tractor engine. You learn how to hack or, something like that. So there's lots of cool different ways of how we put stuff together, and how it's maybe related to both Star Trek and how RPGs have put character creation in the past.
Perfect example of that, the raising the farm thing, is Abraham's version of Kirk at the beginning of the movie, where he's like, I want to just ride my bike in my car and do stuff, and I don't want to be stuck on Earth. I want to go and see the lovely spaceships. So, yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, so the other thing,
go ahead, please.
The other interesting thing that was brought up on the Google Star Trek interesting is with each character has 4 values that defines their character, and if you were to take Burnham as a character, her values would be so different from that flashback part we see 7 years earlier to the ones she actually has for the rest of the series. And
absolutely.
If you were to see that as a actual player character, it's like, hey, this is where you first go on the ship. That would see that development of that character just with those 2 short scenes is very, very interesting to say, okay, this is how far your character can change. You may have said, oh, she's just a stuffy science officer person that's going to come on to Use and Vulcan, and 7 years later she's something completely different, and she's willing to nerve pinch her captain and try and take over the ship. It's something vastly different there. So
yeah.
So where do you think that they're going to take the next few episodes, where they have some crisis and they're going to need her to pull her out of jail? And do you think that this has legs to keep going? How has it been received in the community, where fans are so rabid for or against?
I think it's been a pretty good reception, to be honest. I mean, I've seen a couple of kind of, I'd say, more diehard fans who are like, I did not enjoy this, but they've not really gone on about it. I mean, maybe I just don't hang out in those forums, but that overall I've seen positive feedback. But it's kind of answered the question about how it's got legs. Like I said, I don't really know where to go from here in terms of those first 2 episodes. But I reckon there'll basically be some plot reason, and I hope it's not weak, for them to basically get her out of jail and go, about Klingons, you should go on this ship. Or do you know what? Maybe she served her time, and maybe she comes out and it's like 10 years later. No, that's daft, because then Kirk's around.
Then you're Kirk. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's going to be such a small time frame to fit all this in.
Yeah.
That's why I was surprised when they gave her the actual sentence. I thought, that takes her right up to Kirk era. That's really weird. So
yeah.
Then they would have to digital Carrie Fisher in a James T. Kirk.
Yeah, that's right. Just Bones McCoy in the background. Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. But there'll be some MacGuffin reason why she has to be brought out and back into service. We obviously have to meet this new Captain Lorca, Jason Isaacs' character. So we have to get a lean on him. I mean, I read the Netflix description of episode 3 today, and it was pretty much, Burnham goes on the USS Discovery, so the ship is actually going to turn up, and she meets the new captain, and not all is what it appears as it seems to be, and it's just like, it's such a weak description, but I guess they have to go with something so bland that people won't really read into it too much. But I wonder if we'll have a mix of isolated episodes where they just find something interesting and they have to deal with it for a week, and then stuff that will propel the main plot arc. Hopefully, I'd quite like a mix of both. I would like a couple of more classic Star Trek episodes where we find this really interesting thing. Oh, it turns out to be this. Oh well, let's fix that with a deflector dish.
We've got a Harry Mudd episode coming up.
We do have a Mudd episode coming up,
which is going to be damn bloody fantastic. Hopefully, I'm really hoping it's going to be good because Harry Mudd was fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm genuinely hoping it's not as flamboyant as the '60s Mudd. I really am.
They were great.
How much of the show did you... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. I was just having a go at Harry Mudd.
How much of the show, while you were sitting there watching, were you able to mine for game material? Like, are players of the tabletop game going to be able to watch this week after week and be like, all right, this is what we're doing at the table in a month from now?
I think so, but I took more of the cues from it as kind of the feeling on the bridge and the feeling of a team trying to deal with something. So the captain having an overall overview of what's going on, and then you've got the operations officers trying to scan stuff, the science officers trying to get the telemetry and figure out what it is, and the tactical officers on standby or is trying to fix on the signal, and then you've got the commanders backing up the captain and looking at communications or is looking to extrapolate the data or something. So not so much as a kind of, oh, that's a cool plot device, I'm going to use that, more as a kind of, it's a nice refresher for the vocabulary of Star Trek, I think. Because Technobabble was one of the hardest things to ever accomplish.
The interesting thing about the bridge crew is, to me, they felt largely undefined, apart from Saru, who is fantastic. And if Saru is not the Data Spock Doctor character from this series, I'll be very, very surprised, because I think he's absolutely brilliant. Even again, we've seen him for 2 episodes. He's probably been in it for maybe 20 minutes in the entire thing, and already we've got a backstory for him. Kind of how he's going to react to certain situations, and it's just, he's really, really cool. But you've got some interesting characters there by looks. You've got a guy that's got like the kind of Lobot thing around the back of his head that seems to have some kind of cybernetic organization. You've got it seems to be, I don't know if it's a robot or if it's a person with a cybernetic, the little screen head thing going on. And it's like, who are these people? What do they do? And I don't know if we're going to see those characters again, all of them. I know apparently Saru is going to be assigned to the Discovery, as far as I'm aware. Whether or not we're going to see any of the others, I don't know. But there was a lot of obviously, I don't know if it's just because of time, and we obviously had to focus on the 2 main characters, but we didn't get the hey, that's Chekhov, that's Sulu, and they all had something to say. Yeah, I mean, like Uhura in the classic Trek was always a character that obviously Kirk would always ask Uhura to do stuff, and same as Spock could always ask to do stuff. This time you didn't tend to get a lot of personalities or a lot of kind of background or anything from a lot of the other bridge crew, I thought, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking down the list of names here, and I bet you wouldn't be able to point them out to me on the bridge. Lieutenant Tyler, Dr. Nambu. Well, that's the doctor guy. We know who that was. But there's a Cadet Tilly. I don't know who that is. Ensign Connor. I think he was either the ops or the pilot, because I think he spoke to Burnham before she lifted off in her EV suit.
Yes.
But I some of these names I couldn't tell you who they were.
No.
But yeah, but I kind of valued it for that. I never like exposition for exposition's sake.
Oh no.
And I really did. I really loved. I mean, there was a little bit of that in the very first desert scene, which is one of the scenes we got most of in the trailer. And it was pretty much the trailer. And there was a bit of the, oh, you've been in my service now for 7 years. I'm trying to say this dialogue like it matters. And, you're like, oh, great, okay. But actually, I kind of appreciated that we didn't learn that, the flight controller is, Sulu, or, has, likes fencing, or,
that's right. It was like, hey, this is just like when I was back home in Russia. Yeah, it's like, okay, we don't need to say it. You don't need to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it for that, to be honest. And I wonder if this crew will probably be transported over to the Discovery with a new captain. It's kind of unfortunate. I don't know how the new captain's going to be, because actually I was listening to Mission Log, the Roddenberry podcast, and the guys there said something really interesting about how Michelle Yeoh's character, Doug Jones, who was playing Saru, and Shaniqua's character, how they all work together, and how actually you got a bit of Kirk, Bones, and Spock in the 3 of them arguing and then, you know, the captain kind of coming in like Kirk did and kind of, you know, oh, I agree with both of you. That's why you're both going to go. And then them being like, what? And, you know, and that kind of thing. And I wonder if that will be lost with the new captain. I don't know. I hope not.
So another interesting thing about the not knowing the other crew on the bridge and only knowing the main crew, it really sets a really good precedent for a very small role-playing group. You've only got 3 players. Jing, there you go. You've got 3 players. You've got your supporting cast as your as in the rule book. You've got supporting cast that are there that are filling the gaps when the other characters are doing something else. The other players have got supporting cast to actually use. There you go, 3 players, job done. You don't need say, oh, we're playing Star Trek. Okay, we've got to invite 17 people then because we need the entire bridge crew. We need everybody working in engineering. So it's quite nice for that respect as well.
Yeah. I just know that when I start my Star Trek game, I'm going to have a campaign where, we're all going to play non-commissioned officers, sick of all these officers running around thinking they know everything.
Oh, lower decks, yes.
God.
Load the torpedo tube again. Great.
So we're coming up on the end of the road or the end of the Star Trail here for the show for tonight, and I just wanted to get parting thoughts about the show and maybe give you guys some time to plug the game.
Sure. I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of Discovery. I mean, like, I want it to be here now, all of it, so I can just binge it. But yeah, and I'll probably go back and watch the second episode shortly. After this, probably, I don't know, tomorrow or something. My parents are coming around actually, and you know, I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad, jammed into the same single armchair together when I was, you know, only so high, and you know, grew up with Picard, so. I'm going to be keen on Sunday to share Discovery with him because you know he'll be able to see it and get up to date in glorious 4K, like seen that's never before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. You know, I do going to have some trepidations about maybe a new captain because I think that the original trio worked with Michelle Yeoh. I think she did a really nice job, but we'll see how it goes. And then. No, the game. I'm still really excited by working on it. So we pretty much kind of officially launched it at Gen Con 50 in August. So I managed to fly over to the States for the first time ever. There's only so long that I think a human should be in a big tin bus in the sky, but you know. But it was really, really amazing, and the fan response has been fantastic. And we're going to get into shops because some of our we have to ship over the stock that we've made in Europe over to America, obviously. So that takes some weeks just to get through and to get through customs and everything. So that's well on the way, and it should be any day now. So it will be in stores within the next couple of weeks. And I'm really looking forward to that and supporting stores at getting some community involved in organised play and stuff. And of course, we've got our big collector's edition set, the Borg Q boxed set, which is a limited run with a holographic sticker numbering. And you basically get pretty much everything, including PDFs of all the upcoming supplements. You get the limited edition book, map, all the minis, all the dice that are available so far, some tokens, so everything you'll need. And they're being manufactured literally as I speak in Germany. So they'll be with people who've pre-ordered within the next few weeks as well, and then there'll be some in retail and some left over after that too. So yeah,
right on. Ade, final thoughts?
Yeah, looking forward to Discovery. I quite like the idea of having it being once a week, because TV nowadays, I don't get that. Back in the day, you used to have something good on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You go, oh, this is going to be good TV. So actually having, oh my god, I've got to wait till Monday for it. This is going to be good. I'm looking forward to this. It's I think it's going to be interesting. I hope the episodes stay to the same quality we got this one, because the amount of money they must have spent on effects and actual sets and everything was brilliant. There was nothing in there. Oh, here you go, ropey effects. This is terrible. I thought it looked really good. So I'm hoping we get some standalone episodes where we do see the mysterious object. What the hell is it? Oh, it's that, coming up, and not just this constantly arcing Klingon stuff. kind of like Doctor Who does. Doctor Who does generally tends to have a overarching storyline for the season, and then little individual ones. But yeah, I'm hoping it does well, and I'm hoping this is not the last we see of a Star Trek season. I hope we see another season and maybe a proper on TV series, so other people can see it without having to spend a vast amount of money to do so.
Right on. Yeah, because I don't know. I don't know if I can go for 19 streaming services. That might hurt my head and my wallet.
The interesting thing would be is if you wait until they've all aired, then you could possibly only pay for a month and watch them all in one go.
Right.
Well, then you get that HBO thing, don't you? Of it's as if not to mix up my Star Wars and Star Trek here, but it's as if it's as if 1,000 subscribers unsubscribed when Game of Thrones finished.
Yeah,
and
that's
HBO don't have any income anymore from the streaming service.
Yeah,
Star Trek will be done, and then millions of subscribers just vanish.
Oh God. Yeah, may the force be with you. So on that note, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out tonight and talking about this. I really appreciate it. And
no worries.
I know Mike sent me a note saying that they still haven't fixed the transporter, so he wasn't able to make it, but he was here with us in spirit. Oh crap, another Star Wars reference. I gotta work this out. Anyway, on behalf of the BAMF podcast, thank you so much for coming out. To those listening, please go to your local e-tailers, which might be a click away, such as Drive Through RPG, RPG Now. Pick up Star Wars. God.
Terrible.
Star Trek. Thank you. Star Trek. The
Star Trek
Adventures core rulebook, which you can get right now. And you guys just released an Adventures series.
Yeah, we did. These are the Voyages Mission Compendium 1.
9 adventures in that? 10?
There's 7.
7.
Yeah, just because the page limit. But we're going to be producing a second volume of that. Title undisclosed as yet. We're trying to figure out something equally as cool as These are the Voyages. Yeah, and there'll be supplements coming out at least every quarter next year. Covering the different divisions, command, operations and sciences, and then also quadrant books about the different quadrants too. So lots to look forward to. And
if people want to keep track of all this, Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Twitter, we're at Modiphius. And then if you just head over to modiphius.com, then you can easily find all our different games on there as well. So it's not just that. We've done Conan recently. We've got John Carter Kickstarter coming up. Loads of different stuff.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to John Carr. Cannot wait.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you're going to come on and talk about that, right?
Sure, yeah. Let me reach out to a couple of developers. I'll get them on here. Yeah,
get a nice big round table. We can all talk about, small little loincloths and laser pistols.
Absolutely. Well, so, if the little miniature sculpts are anything to go by, there'll be plenty of that.
Right on. Well, once again, this has been Walt, and on behalf of Mike Lafferty and the BAMF podcast and Star Trek, thank you very much for coming out tonight, guys, and we'll catch you next time. Dear Lord, damn Klingons on the BAMF podcast.